right, thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is the next composer interview. I'm here with Mr. Chapman Welch, and we are in your studio at Rice University where you teach. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, glad to.
So tell me what you do here at Rice.
Well, I teach electronic music composition to undergraduates. I also teach a recording class for graduate students, and I run the studio. It's called RIM Labs, or Rice Electroacoustic Music Labs. Kurt Stallman's our director, and I'm the electroacoustic specialist. I have my doctorate in electronic music, and that's what I do here. You know, I've been running shows here for about 14 years now.
Oh, nice. And so what got you into electronic music?
I went to graduate school. I was completely acoustic musician, and I got a job at a place called the Center for Experimental Music and Intermedia at University of North Texas. I only got the job because the person who was going to work there quit because she didn't realize it was experimental music and not recording like jazz.
Oh, okay.
So she quit. They asked me to do it for the first year and a half. The only thing I was like, I'd say equipped to do, because I knew nothing about electronic music, like zero, was we didn't have a mute on our video camera. So my job was to hold a box in front of the projector in the balcony until I saw the screen pop up. Then I'd move the box. That was my that was my job. But then, but by the end, I was running the play. You know, I was like the main technician there.
Okay.
So you can learn that. So and I just really fell in love with it there. And so I'm a pianist, but I was always a electric guitar player too. So electronic sounds and things weren't against what I was used to, you know. So it was like glad to.
So you have like pedals galore, I'm guessing.
I do have quite a few, but not like crazy. I tend to build my own in Max if I'm going to do it. If I build like improv systems, I build it in the computer and I play my guitar with it.
Oh, that's really cool. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I want to. So how does that go about? Like when you're deciding to design a new improv system, what are the things that you? What's like what does that look like?
Well, you know, partially how I made your piece.
Oh, okay.
It's like it has these sort of parameters that are set, but like usually the way I had it, I still pedal paradigm. I press the pedals, and it brings up different presets on the computer, but the presets themselves are a little smarter than
what you'd buy at Guitar Center.
Right, because, well, they're just tweaked the way I want them to. I could be like, hey, for this today, I can make it where it looks at all the notes I'm playing and decides that, oh, he's playing a lot of those today. Let's make that do something now.
So is it an AI network?
It's not AI, you know. It's like kind of squirrely to talk about in some ways, you know, because it's like, no, it's just I programmed the computer to react to certain things. It's a reaction like a light switch to a light bulb, except if you were like didn't know when the light switch was going to turn on, but you knew it was going to, and you know what I mean? It's like, but it's not like the computer has to think. It's like you set up like certain, I like thinking of them as like saved games.
Oh, okay.
So it's sort of like, oh, here's a state that I like. Okay, leave it here, and it behaves this way, and leave this state like this, and it behaves another way. And so then you put a bunch of those states together. You write a piece first, and then you put the states that you like that complement the music, and then you let the person go. And so that's sort of how I build them. With the pedals, yeah, it's like pedals are great for certain things. Like they make better reverbs, they make better delays, they do all these things that sound better. But what's interesting about Max and about the things that you can build with in a bunch of different software is that you can make it maybe not sound as great as that $300 pedal you just bought, but make it react in ways that thing couldn't possibly do. Like,
so there's give and take.
Yeah, but I'm all for the electronic side. If I'm making rock and roll records, I want pedals. If I'm making electronic classical music, I want a computer.
Fair enough.
That's pretty much how I feel about it.
So as a pianist, did you do primarily classical music, jazz?
Classical music.
Okay.
I did classical music. Growing up, I thought I was going to be a classical pianist. I hit the road with my rock and roll band, and I did not become a classical pianist, and then I became a composer instead. Yeah.
I didn't know you were in a rock and roll band.
I was in a band called Law of Nature. My wife was a singer. We started it long before we dated, but I was 15, she was 14, and we still make records today. That's really 30 years ago. And we toured and did all these things, and then in the course of it all, we started dating, and now we're married. She's pharmacist and I'm a teacher, but we still make rock and roll records.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
So you started when you were 14. So what was your first introduction to music?
Piano at like 6 and 7. You know, started when I was a baby.
Were your parents musicians as well?
My mother was a singer and a piano player, but not really. And my dad couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. He was the worst, singer. He had a nice voice. He had a beautiful voice when you heard him sing alone. You'd be like, oh, what a nice voice. If you played a chord, he couldn't find it. He couldn't sing in time. It was just ridiculous, But hey, but my brother's a musician. He's a country musician, so I play a lot of country music too. I like it all. And I can do most all of it too. So that's what I do.
So do you find that like that multidisciplinary genre blending happens in your music, or do you kind of have voices in different ones?
Definitely, I think it does. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, your piece, I think, is the way I felt about it is sort of, well, it's on a shakuhachi, so it's going to have a certain connotation for what it sounds like when you play a shakuhachi. People hear that and they think about, things might pop into their head because it has a distinct timbre that everybody goes, oh, yeah, I know what that is. But then what I wanted to do is like keep it in and out like a jazz line. So it's like that's what they're doing. It's kind of like it's in when it's D minor, and then it gets out, and then it gets back in and out and in, and that's sort of the vibe. So that's my jazz. I've studied jazz, and that's sort of like I kind of took yours as like a jazz thing with this kind of spiritual sort of bass that, like Coltrane or something. That's what I was aiming towards, But yeah, I do a lot of that stuff. I'm actually writing a piece for this guy now, violist named Alfonso Noriega. He's really amazing. I play a lot of fiddle tunes on guitar and mandolin. I've been learning a lot of mandolin lately. And so it's like all these fiddle tunes, these American fiddle tunes. And so they have a certain way in which they're put together. They have certain things. And so I take all that and I put it in a blender, and I'm making this viola piece for this guy out of these fiddle tunes. But I'm playing my mandolin, making sure it's playable, and doing all these technical things that are fiddle tune techniques that I can learn on a mandolin. Normally when people write for strings, it's sort of like, here it is, you put your fingers wherever you want them to be, and it'll work, I'm sure it'll be fine, and you might have a different fingering than I have in mind, but with this, I'm like, no, play it like this. I have to tell him so he can learn the technique, because it's like, you see a double note, you think, oh, but it needs to be an open string, and you need to slide. So it's like all these things, they come together in what I do.
That's wonderful.
And it's Bach, too. I'm learning all the Bach on mandolin, all the Bach violin partitas, and on mandolin. When I say that I'm learning them all, I'm just slowly trudging through them to learn how to play mandolin and figure out where it really feels.
That's quite the undertaking.
Well,
that's a lot of music.
Well, let's just be honest. I've only got the G minor presto so far. That's what I've been working on. So it's the most impressive one to just whip out for the the violinists around here. If I ever get their fiddle in my hand, I'll be like, I can play it on there with a pick. Give me the bow. No chance. But
so we first met when we were at a Houston Composers Salon.
Indeed.
And you, I knew you before that because you did lots of the recording there, but I was really impressed with your guitar performance of Thomas Helton's piece. And a lot of that was improvisatory, and so so when you're composing, do you take some of that part of your improv in order to write your pieces, or are those separate as well? Because you've got a lot going on. I mean, you do a lot of things, so I'm trying to imagine how like your brain works when you're about ready to go in for a piece.
That one, for Thomas's, he had a very rough sketch of just harmony in a few little moments, and it's like make a 10-minute piece out of it. That's sort of Thomas's way, and so that I kind of worked out. I had it like chunks of music that I knew this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Kind of what happens in between, who knows? But it's like I got to get here. I got to get to this little lick to get me to this thing, where I'll do these kind of things to get me to the next spot. So it's, if you heard me practicing it, by the end it was pretty much, when I say pretty much the same every time, it was definitely, you would recognize it as the same piece. But if you were playing them back to back, they'd all be different.
Okay.
I mean, like a jazz tune.
Yeah, just a jazz tune, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I was like doing the same sort of stuff, but I would try for something different. I would never do it quite the same, but it would be the same sounds at the same in the same order. You know?
And like the same arcs and stuff like that.
And a lot for a lot of my composition, I do use improvisation, but controlled improvisation. I learned a long time ago that not everybody has my background in improv and jazz or classical or rock and roll or bluegrass or all the stuff I love doing, but so you can't expect people to do it. Like in other words.
Well, yeah, because a lot of classical musicians, if you give them something to improvise, they go, "So, what do you want me to do?"
Right, exactly.
That happens very often.
Or they can't, or you tell them a reference they don't know. It's like, I remember a flutist, I said, have you ever heard Eric Dolphy play flute? Because he's a saxophone player, but he plays flute on a bunch of those old jazz records. And she's like, no. And it's like, well, now I can't explain what I was going for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, and that's my fault. It's not her fault that she never heard Eric Dolphy. It's my fault for assuming that she would have, you know? So I changed that to where it's like, it's prescribed, it's narrowed down, but it's not completely free. I pick the notes, but I'll say put it in the order you like, or do that. And then if you're a really good improviser, then they take that and they do something else. I have a piece called More for clarinet and electronics and ensemble. 2 different clarinetists did it, and one guy was an amazing improviser, and so he plays like Turkish clarinet. It's crazy. It's all this microtonal crazy stuff, and the piece was kind of about Ustad Bismillah Khan and all his old, Pakistani music, and he knew where I was coming from, and he just improvised in a way. He took my framework and really did it great, whereas the other clarinetists did a fine job, but it was more straight to what I had, and it sounded fine. But he took it to that next level because he knew how to improvise with it. And I said, sure, So I use a lot of improv in there, and if you can take it farther, then go ahead. But if you want to just play it straight to the line, you can't, And so that's what I do. I do write a lot of improv not into your piece that much, but
yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
But a lot of times I do that. But normally it's just like boxed things that are sort of like breathing points. You hit a spot and you're like, I need a VO in my mind, so it's like I need a second, so you can repeat that pattern until you get on your feet again. Then you can kind of move on, like a rock and roll band. You hit a spot and you're like, "Are you guys ready?" Okay, no.
Yeah, and go for it.
Yeah,
it's interesting that you're doing the viola gesture. Actually, my composition teacher in college, he played bass, and so even if we were looking at a guitar piece or a harp piece, he would still be doing this for stuff. It's hilarious. So let's go right into your piece. Let's talk a little bit more about it. Antenna for Shakuhachi and electronics. What was it like for you? Is this your first time writing for Shakuhachi?
Yes, definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
and what did you think about it when I approached you and I said, write me a piece?
I was, first of all, very excited to do it. You're a great player, so it was like, I was glad to do it. And, I didn't quite know. I wanted to, I had 2 choices. I could either try to make it very, I could either try to learn everything possible about the Shakuhachi and put all the techniques that I wanted you to do, or I could learn as much as I could learn about the Shakuhachi, write the music down, and then say, I believe that you can add the techniques that make the Shakuhachi interesting yourself rather than me. It's sort of like when people write which sticks for the percussionists use, it's like they're going to use what they know is better than what you think. So just let them do their job. Tell them you want it bright, you want it whatever, bright, dark, use those kind of words. They'll figure out which mallet to use.
Yeah, and then the conductor will tell you harder sticks.
Or whatever, yeah, exactly. But the same thing goes for you. It's like I didn't want to make sure you use this technique or this, all the techniques. There's so many things you can do with it, and it's like
it can be a little bit overwhelming for some of the
right,
composers,
exactly.
too.
And so I chose to not let it be overwhelming to me and let you make those decisions, because you've obviously spent more time with the instrument and heard more of the music and know more of the, you have all this wealth of knowledge, and so for me to not tap into that, that's the silly part. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, let you do the part that years of your life have been dedicated to, rather than what I came up with in a month and a half of studying a shakuhachi, really, like hardcore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're gonna be better at it than me. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, I'd hope so. If you got better than me that fast.
Yeah, of course, right? Or knew more about it. And it's like, oh no, are you using? If I knew which shakuhachi you were playing, and said, no, make sure, no, that technique. I can't remember them all because it's Japanese, right? But anyway, you know.
Yeah, that's another barrier, right?
Yeah,
a lot of everything's in Japanese.
Right, exactly. So it's impossible, you know. So I was grateful that you exposed me to this instrument because it's a very interesting instrument and great to hear you play it and learn about it, you know. It's like now if somebody asked me to write for a shakuhachi, I would say sure, and I would know exactly what kind of things it can do and like what the traditional ways are and what aren't, and you know, I'd have a baseline knowledge that I could use in the future. So I found it great fun, but I didn't want to circumvent like the fact that it's like I've played a lot of guitar music, and when guys can't play guitar and they write guitar music, it's like worse than piano music when people can't play piano music. And so I just shake my head sometimes. It's like, why didn't you ask?
Yeah, and I'm sure that harp players really feel that way a lot too, because you know a lot of people will write like a G sharp and a G natural in the same chord, and they're like, I can't do that. You got to change to an A flat.
Yeah, I mean that's even the most basic thing, you know. But I mean, yeah, it's like. And so similar things like, you know, you have jumps that can't be done on a guitar and piano things that just feel clunky, like they're worried about the right hand, but then the left hand's muddy and
they're at like 6-note runs that are repetitive and same thing.
Right, they just don't know what they're doing. You know?
I understand that.
And so that's what I'm trying to avoid is like worry about the big stuff and then let performers make the music more, because it's like when you listen to Beethoven, when I was listening to, since I'm doing all this Bach stuff, I've been listening to like everybody playing Bach, you know, and you know, if you listen to great people like Perlman playing those partitas, and it's not, what he plays isn't on that page, you know, it's like the notes are, but just how he stretches it and how he finesses it, that's all about him. So I mean, if Bach was alive, I think he would approve. You know what I mean? It was like he would allow that. And so I feel like sometimes in 20th century music, it's very prescriptive. Like everything has to be just so. And so I like it when people can kind of like use their ability better than I can to like make music out of it rather than do this strange thing that I'm going for right here. I can get both. I can make the strange thing, tell you to make it strange, and do it in your own way. You know, change the timbre, do.
Now, inside antenna, did you change have like a specific idea about formal structure of the piece?
Yeah, I wanted these lyrical lines, like I said, that kind of go in between, in and out. Playing is what I would say. You know, like they resolve themselves, and then this rhythmic pulse that's kind of like a backbeat. Playing to a drummer that's not there, you know, and then the computer is in the same tempo with you, so that it becomes sort of like it fleshes out that idea, you know, because it's like alone, it's not that interesting, you know. But when you play all these interesting lines, and then it suddenly gets back to this thing where it's just stuck, but then the computer is unstuck at that point,
and it's developing and growing and
giving
the music energy.
Right.
You know, I can beatbox too. I should have told you that.
You could have done both, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so then those are the two elements, and then the last is just a coda. I throw codas on pieces a lot of times. I love doing that, to where it's just like, oh, it's going, and then suddenly now for something completely different. You know, over. You know, and it's just like.
Do you find it difficult to write endings or beginnings, or like which part of the piece is the biggest struggle for you?
It depends, you know. Like I wrote this thing, the viola piece I'm writing right now. I came up with the opening, and I knew I was going to write about fiddle pieces, but I came up with the opening first because I started thinking how I wanted the opening to be like an opening of a fiddle tune before the band kicks in. A lot of times I'll then they all come in, you know, whatever. But it's like this thing that's twisted. So I did that, and then now the middle is going to be I don't know. It's like I tend to come up with...
It depends on the piece and
definitely
stuff,
depends on the piece, and it also depends on which... like, okay, I came up with something, in this piece that I thought was going to be the opening, and it turns out every time I played it, I was like, "That's not a good opening," and so it's not the opening now anymore. I don't know if it's going to make it in at all. You know what I mean? It's just maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. You know, so I tend to write a lot of stuff, throw it on the wall and see what sticks, kind of thing. I write a lot of stuff and go, not oh, that's nice, and that's nice, and
start to glue things together,
or come up with like these ideas. Like a composer I really like is this guy named Harrison Birtwistle, and
oh yeah, I know Birtwistle.
Yeah, and so he has a piece called Carmen Arcadia Mechanica Perpetuum, which it's a chamber orchestra piece, and it's like 7 lines of music for chamber orchestra. He wrote all 7 from, if it's 300 measures, I forget, he wrote all 300 one way, another way, another way, another way, and another way, 7 different ways. And then they play this one, then they jump down to this one, then they go this one, they go this one. So it's like, if you hear this music here, and it gets developed, but you don't hear it again till here, then you hear like it's been developing in silence for like the past like 30 measures before it pops back in. And so it's like the thing before, but it's been developed and changed over these. So I do stuff like that too, like when I hit a rut or I'm like, ooh, this would be good and I know it'll work, I'm like, write 3 or 4 different things that are similar in they're different but similar in certain ways, you know. Then I can just piece them together, put them back together, and then when they show back up, it turns into something that I could never have come up with writing it straight across. You know, it's like I have having those different ideas and go, I never would have thought, hey, this leads to this, but it does. Once it's all put on the page, I go, oh, that's really cool how that works. I never would have seen that. I could have never come up with it without doing it that way. So it's both a cheat and like a way of coming up with generating material that I never would have thought about. That's better than what I could have thought about. I mean, it's like compositional, pre-compositional techniques.
Yeah.
You know, when people get stuck, you have to do something.
Flip things backwards, flip them upside down.
Yeah, exactly. You got to do some sort of.
Yeah, there's.
And so that's just one of my tools that I use is like this idea of like multiple patterns, multiple lines of music that kind of pop between each other that I stole from Birtwistle. So, so you know how it is. It's like there's different tricks. Like if I need to write a piece in a day, I have certain tricks that can make me. I could write you a piece in a day if I had to. Might not be the best piece, but I have a trick of doing that. You know what I mean? Like it's like for this type of thing, quickly. I mean, if it's a solo, you know, I couldn't write an orchestra piece in a day, you know, or not a very good one. But
I mean, you could just make like big hits every 10 seconds.
With the strings just slowly, you know.
Just slowly rising over 10 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah, sure. But there you go. So we've already done it.
We already made a piece.
But honestly, it's just like, you know, there's just different tricks that I hit a wall and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do anymore. Let's try this. You know the Eno oblique strategies? Do you know that?
I don't know.
Brian Eno, you know, composer, but he's more of a producer, art person, you know, generative music. He did all these things, but he and another guy, I can't remember the guy's name, came up with a thing called oblique strategies, and when they would get caught in a studio, they had a list of cards, and lift them up, and you'd say, it gives you an idea. Try doing this. Okay, and you just, whatever it says, you try it. And just to try to break you out of ruts, like ways of getting you to do something different that you hadn't thought about doing.
That's what I need to do.
It's a good. Hey, they sell these cards. I promise. You can get oblique strategies. Buy the cards. You know?
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, what about the title of the piece? Is there anything significant about that?
I'm gonna find oblique strategies for you.
Oh, okay,
I
cool.
know it's online. I know you're on. I know you're gonna post this, but. Here's this PDF.
Oh, okay. Oh, think of the radio.
Don't be frightened of cliches.
Oh. Oh, that's great. Oh, and you can just print them out. You don't have to buy it.
No.
That's fantastic.
Go slowly all the way around the outside. Turn it upside down. Are there sections? Consider transitions as opposed to just sections.
Yeah.
Well, a line has two sides.
And
Some of it's
gradations. That's a good one.
Yeah, dude. But I mean, it's like whatever the hell he's saying, just give it a shot. And maybe it takes you out of whatever problem you're having. The name though, how I normally do names for pieces. I used to try to name them myself, but I completely don't anymore. I go online and I think of words that are non-musical that describe the piece. And then I Google stuff until I come up with, I wish I had all the titles that didn't make
make the list.
It didn't make the list. I might have them here somewhere, but I'll look real quick. But yeah, I go through them and I just tried till I find something. And there was, I forget what English TV antenna is called aerial. No, it was called something else. I'm trying to remember what they called it. And so I got there to whatever the name I had got me to an English TV antenna. And I just thought antenna. Because it's like, I wanted to have that kind of spiritual vibe in a way, like that kind of, meditative sort of opening kind of thing. And plus, it looks like an antenna. so it's like it's catching whatever vibes I'm trying to, give to it, and why not? It's like, it's kind of, it made sense to me, so that's why I caught it. If I could find this thing, let me see if I have one called antenna.
Because when I'm titling music from my own, all of mine are always very long and poetic. And it's just like a full statement.
Yeah.
Usually, so I'm always interested in titling, because titling is one of those things that it can really set up how you perceive a piece in general.
Right.
And
absolutely, I completely agree. So I'm trying to find. No, I don't have my names, but yeah, I got it. That's how I do a lot of it. Like, I have pieces called Unsafe Microwave Oven Experiments. I have another piece called, but then some of them are, I have one called Ritual House. I have one called Hummingbird Medicine. I have one called, there are these poetic things, but there's websites out there called Hummingbird Medicine. And there's one called...
Wait, is it actually like for hummingbirds?
Yeah. Unsafe Microwave... No, let me put... It's actually called Unwise Microwave Oven Experiments was the name of the thing.
I'm just guessing they put random things inside a microwave.
Yeah, Unwise Microwave Oven Experiments. So instead of, when I found that thing, I said it's a title. It's a piece for electric guitar and trombone. It made perfect sense. It's like this wacky thing I wrote. But unwise sounds like, I didn't want to, it does sound unwise that you made a piece like that. It was unwise. You know what I mean? I didn't want to have this. That's
the danger in it, because you can always you don't want a title that people can make fun of.
Right, exactly. So unsafe microwave, it makes it dangerous too. So then, unsafe, and suddenly it's a much better title. So Unsafe Microwave Oven Experiments.
And so where can people go to find more of your work and listen to more of your stuff?
ChapmanWelch.com is a lot of it, and people put it's on YouTube too. There's a lot of I've written a lot for percussion, and I write mainly for pieces, people plus computer, but I do write acoustic music too. There's the piece I'm writing for this violist is both.
Okay. So part of it will be just acoustic, and part of it will be electronic and viola?
No, it's he can actually play it as a solo without electronics.
Oh, okay.
Or if he has electronics, he can do it that way too.
Okay, wonderful. Are you on the Twitters or the Instagrams?
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
I have to look and see what my name is.
Yeah, text that to me, and I'll put it in the video on stuff, so then people can see it at the bottom and stuff.
I'll do it.
Well, thanks so much for having me out.
Well,
I know we just spent a good chunk of time recording your piece, and so it's nice when the composer can record the music for you.
Yeah,
it saves a lot of time.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
So, well, thank you so much for having me, and we'll play it again somewhere.
Yes, indeed.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you guys so much for watching.